Top of the morning to you. Jim Holley here with you on this Saturday morning. 26 days in the month of May. The year is still the same, 2018. Once again, we say good morning to you. For this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I'll be right back.
Oh, little prayer for you, and I will always care for you. Hello, Detroit.
You've seen him on the red carpet, you've seen him on the sidelines, you've seen him on the stage. The hottest looks in urban fashion from the biggest name in urban fashion, Van Dyke's. Now pick out 3, pay for 1. 3 suits for 1. Van Dyke's, 10 Mile and Southfield Road. You've seen him at the clubs, you've seen him in the boardroom, you've seen him on the pulpit. Now get them at Van Dyke's. 3 suits for 1. Suits for the workplace, for the club scene, to be seen in. Pick out 3, pay for 1. Van Dyke's, 10 Mile and Southfield Road.
There is not another culinary or hospitality academy located in the city of Detroit.
There's a lot of people teaching culinary arts, but they're not teaching the business side of it.
We're opening up another kitchen for the Cleary Culinary Academy. We're going to bring a Cleary mind to every kitchen in downtown Detroit.
But when we talk about Cleary mind, we're talking about a student that can make a definite impact.
We want to be a part of all the wonderful food establishments, restaurants, and the food scene in general in downtown Detroit.
I've always been interested in driving. When I was in the service, I drove a stick shift truck. After being retired, I got tired of sitting around. It's time for me to get back maneuvering something on the road. I'm back in school again, and I seen the sign out there, said truck CDL. I'm in school trying to get me an associate degree. One reason I quit school years ago, I'm a slow learner. But once I learn things, I can pick it up, but I can pick more so up on hands-on. The technology is different for me. It's the difference between driving a straight back truck or a stick shift car. And the semi-truck amazes me. This is a program that advances knowledge. I'm determined to get an education. Get you a skill and a trade. Live life. Enjoy it.
Oh, little prayer for you, and I will always care for you. Hello, Detroit.
And once again, thank you so much for being with us on this Saturday morning. Jim Holley once again with you. The program is called Hello Detroit. If this is your first time listening or viewing the program, it is a talk show. It is very much alive, and certainly the numbers are right there on your television screen that you might be able to call us in and talk about the various events, current events that we are talking about, or maybe something that you really want us to be much aware of. And we certainly will invite you to do just that as well. Once again, we thank you so much for being with us. You know, I always start off by letting you know how grateful we are from us here at WHBR, just to let you know how grateful and thankful we are for your support down through the years. And certainly if there's wasn't for you, we know us, and we understand that very well. So we don't take your loyalty for granted. And so it's not only for WHBR, but also this program called Hello Detroit. We've been doing it for a number of years now, and certainly we feel from time to time that we may need to take the focus, change the focus or something like that. But for right now, we think that indeed it's very possible that we need to continue to talk about the various problems we have here in the metropolitan area, and especially here in the city of Detroit. And that's what we really do. There's sometimes the things that we talk about and sometimes the things that we report to you are not really always positive. Sometimes they are negative, but it's negative to be constructive in terms of whether or not we need to really deal with these certain problems that we have here in the city of Detroit. And certainly there are many of them. And so we just want you to know where we are and what we're here for and why we are here. And so we just wanted to thank you so much. It's right now about 8 minutes after the hour. I want you to know that the high today is going to be about 86 for the high today. We got some rain coming in the forecast, as we understand it, that off and on and sometimes kind of heavy, certainly in the afternoon. It was kind of cloudy this morning when we came into the studio. But downtown Detroit is about 73 degrees in metro area, metropolitan airport. I'm sorry, it's about 7 degrees there. We're talking about tomorrow on Sunday. We're talking about 90 degrees, possibility some off and on rain on Sunday, but it's 90 degrees. And then on Monday we're talking about 92 degrees on Monday. On Memorial Day, but isolated showers on tomorrow, perhaps. They're not quite sure as we went on the air. We try to make sure that we are very much accurate in terms of the weather report, because again, we feel like we owe this to you as well. And so once again, we just want to say good morning and we thank God for you. And certainly we realize that this is Memorial Day weekend, where we honor our soldiers who basically made the ultimate sacrifice. And also, for the most part, a lot of us, indeed, not only in terms of our soldiers, but those of us who really basically are family members and that we honor their memory as well. And so, again, we want to make sure that we say Happy Memorial Day, or if it is such a thing as Happy Memorial Day, but Memorial Day as we celebrate it. And that to let you know that indeed we honor those men and women who've done so much in order to protect our freedom and all the things that basically that this country stands for. Obviously, it is not the perfect situation by far, but nevertheless, it's probably one of the best, if not, as I said, not poverty, but the best that we got going for in this world. And so I've been a lot of places. I've been to Africa. I've been every continent but the Antarctic. And every time it's time to come home, I'm ready to come home. And that kind of gives me an idea of just how important it is, in spite of our problems here in the United States, in spite of our problems here in Michigan, in spite of our problems here in the city of Detroit. It is still home, and certainly we got a lot of work to do, and of course that's what it's all about. We've come a long way, but we still got a long way to go. But speaking of all of that, my sisters and brothers, on this Memorial Day weekend, and I basically, from history, tells us that we don't really have a lot of people that call in on Memorial Day weekend, again, that's based on history, and we've been doing this for a number of years. And so we come in, and many of our programs are really basically are pre-recorded just for that fact, and because really people want to be with their families and friends and barbecuing and those kind of things. But I choose to be here because I just feel that it's just something I want to do. Not that I'm any better or anything different. It's just where I want to be, and really to try to let you know what's going on and what we're concerned about, and hopefully that you're concerned about them as well. There is a situation that I want to talk about today, and certainly hope that you will join me, or at least listen to me if you don't want to join, and that is in talking about the fact that Detroit's poverty gets worse in spite of the city's comeback. And this is an article that was done a few weeks ago, and I was trying to get it on the agenda and wasn't able to do it because of some other things that basically that was seen to be a little bit more priority. But I thought maybe on this weekend that we have a little time just to sit and digest this, and really what are we going to do in terms of trying to change things. We always hear people saying things, and many times I get criticized as well for always bringing up the negative, and and I'm always putting people down, or putting the city down, or putting a group down, and various situations where you find yourself being unjustly criticized or misunderstood. But I do feel, my sisters and brothers, that somehow, some kind of way, we need to talk about the fact that if Detroit is what we call the comeback city, and yet poverty is getting worse, then I mean, how is that going to work? How is it going to work? How is Detroit going to do well, and the people in Detroit do bad? And this is the question that we have to ask ourselves, and what are we going to do about it? It's amazing to me. I was and still somewhat dumbfounded by the fact that when they came out about 3 weeks ago, that we had the worst scores in math and reading and so forth in the country, and yet nobody for the most part. Obviously, the superintendent of the schools had something to say about it, which is understandable. But in terms of the community outcry, in terms of preachers, in terms of educators, in terms of parents, and the civil rights organizations, and basically this, then what can we do about it? Why don't we come together and try to see what we can really, how can we make this better? And nothing. It's amazing to me. We are, and again, we'll have at the end of 2017. Say we have just arbitrarily, just say we have 300 homicides. January 1 of 2018, we go on like nothing happened in 2017, and we just start the numbers all over again, and waiting for the end of 2018. And somehow, some kind of way, my sisters and brothers, for the lack of really trying to deal with the problems that we have, it doesn't seem to be a concerted effort. I'm sure somebody's camp is doing this, somebody's camp is doing that, but a concerted effort where we all sitting around the table and trying to see what we can do. How can we make it better for our school, for our students, for our public school system? What can we as parents? What can we as educators? What can we as civil rights advocates? What can we as just the community, and trying to make sure that we do what we can to try to make things better? And it's amazing to me. It's just amazing, that there doesn't seem to be this concerted effort. And so again, then you have these studies that will continue to come out about Detroit, the poverty program, and all this kind of stuff, study after study after study. We got to be the most studied person. I'm sure that's not good English, but I hope it makes sense what I'm saying to you. We've been studied to death. We've been analyzed to death. The point is when are we going to do something to try to make sure, my sisters and brothers, that we begin to make things better in our community, and with our schools, and with our people as the citizens here in this great city. This is a great city, and you and I know that those of us who's been here for decades and decades, we basically are a people that really have always been concerned about education. We've always supported education. We've always supported, the values that we were brought up, and the values that basically from whether you are the Quran, or whether you're from a biblical standpoint, or from whatever religion, that we all understand that indeed there's some value in everybody. There's some value in all of us. And somehow, some kind of way, my sisters and brothers, we got to dig, and get that core, and bring it to light, and so that we can work with what we got. And so again, I come to basically to maybe wake up the conscience, maybe just to say to you that we need to be very much concerned about what's going on in this city. Dan Gilbert, and I'm not mad at nobody. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about. I'm not mad at Dan Gilbert. I mean, I'm not mad at nobody. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about. This guy got $680 million in tax credits, 680 million, for the projects that he's got going on. Can you imagine if we had 680 million to basically to deal with our school system and deal with? I'm not saying that this I'm against whatever he's got. I'm just saying, to me, it's amazing to me what we can do when we want to do things for other people and won't do things for the people who really, really, really deserve it here. So what are we going to do? If the city is coming back, how are we going to address the illiteracy program, I'm trying to say in terms of the fact is that people got to be able to read. They got to be able to. We got to deal with this whole thing about illiteracy, and I'm just saying to you, my sisters and brothers, then in terms of skills and reskilling our people and getting them ready. So if Mr. Gilbert, if he's going to build this building, this second only to the Sears Tower in Chicago, some 50 to 60 floor building, and going to hire 35, whatever the number is in terms of people, then if some of that money be used for training and getting people ready for the jobs. It's going to take 2 years or 3 years to build what it's got to build. Shouldn't there be enough time for us to get ready for the jobs and have the people identified with the jobs that comes with the project? Should we not do both? Should we not build the building and also build lives at the same time? Am I making any sense to any of you? And I'm just saying to you, my sisters and brothers, somehow, vocation, the vocation that the young people got to do in the schools. And certainly these are the things that we really got to address to make sure that indeed that it's benefit for all of us. Caller, thank you for your patience. How are you this morning? Good morning.
I'm just saying.
Yes.
I agree with you that black people in America, we are probably the most better off group in the world, powerless in the world, but we're still endangered in a way. Our standards kind of blinds us. People that don't have any power outside of the United States, at least they're aware. Okay, we're not even aware of the danger. Just like the last collective effort that we had was called the Pope Young theory, because we're dealing with power. We have to have power in order to live as a group, and that's the bottom line. I don't care what ideal anybody comes up with. We have to be a collective, powerful group. Mm. When you go and buy things in the black community, we go to these stores like robots. You don't see any black stores. That's not normal. We don't take care of ourselves at all. It seems like we would see it, but we're just consumers. And it's like we're a bunch of robots. And as our situation gets worse, it's just, we just continue as robots. Mm. This is their show. They report what they want to report. I don't believe all those statistics that they report, talking about black people worse in the country, math, etc. Look, We're not dealing with the computer. That's a different level. And it's not difficult to deal with the computer. Black people, children, love it. And when you start dealing with math on the computer, you're on a different level. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I think Hold Young was the last big collective effort. Unless we do something on that level or beyond, I think what Jim Mosley wrote in the Black Christian Nationalism, the introduction at the end, is going to come to. But I keep on mentioning this prophecy, I guess you call it, that I have for 2024. That's supposed to change things. And I swear that before I ever knew about David Wilcox and his friend, they were talking about the same thing. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I think that's going to happen. If that happens, then, there might be some hope there.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you for the call, too. Caller, thank you so much for your patience. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Rev Holley.
Yes, how are you?
I just want to express that the reparations, the restitutions, and our tax monies are continuing to fund other families, communities, and empires. We still live in the tale of two Detroit. The new ones are funded, empowered, respected, and protected. The old Detroiters are robbed, harassed, unprotected, and neglected, which is causing direct domino effect of poverty, ignorance, physical, and mental health. And I just wanted to add that there is a street maintenance helper position with the city of Detroit, and these applications will be ending on the 31st, the closing date for a street maintenance helper for the city of Detroit. The closing date is 5/31. The salary is $10.62 to $13.81 an hour. So those who want to work and need a job and need to do what they need to survive, street maintenance helper, job opening with the city, and the closing date is 5/31/2018. Thank you for taking my call. Love you.
And thank you for the call. If you just joined us, 25 minutes after the hour, Jim Holley here with you on this Saturday morning, 26 days of the month of May. And basically what we're talking about is that Detroit's poverty gets worse in spite of Detroit comeback. And what we're getting to be, my sisters and brothers, a city of have or have-nots. And that's where this thing is going, if we're not already there. And of course is that I'm not here basically just trying to talk about the negative of the report, but I'm also here to talk about what can we do about the report. If I know that this something is coming that's going to hurt me, then why would I not do something to avoid it, or to put something put myself in position to make sure that I'm not hurt by it. And so I'm just saying to you is that if we see all of this coming, and of course, illiteracy is one of the problems. Obviously, we got to deal with our public education system. We got to deal with the vocation, the skills, trades. We got to deal with all that. Got to make sure we deal with our high school dropouts, and making sure that our young people stay in school. We got to deal with this whole thing about parents' responsibility in terms of making sure that indeed that you have a relationship with your teacher. The teacher has a relationship with the parent. That our class sizes got to be at a point where it's manageable. Discipline is obviously you cannot have a successful program in a high school or in the public education system without discipline. And then, of course, what about the whole idea about having early childhood in terms of educations for early childhood, which I'm always have been an advocate for, and that is for Head Start, and then kindergarten and preschool, and then to first grade, and then by the first or third grade, you ought to be able to read the fundamentals, and all of that should be in place. And every other ethnic group in this country basically has education priority for their children, and we do too. We do too. We just got to organize it. We just got to make sure that accountability is there. But my sister, brother, when you see, and maybe sometimes, my frustration is that I see things, and other people see things, and then it seems like I want to know, well, why, and other people may want to know why not. I'm just saying to you is that somehow, some kind of way, we have to deal with these situations that's going on in our community, and I don't think I think we got to get control of it. When I mean that, but we, as leaders, as African Americans in this community, we got to control. We got to get in control of our own destiny. Nobody really is going to look out for us but us. And why should they? But you also got to resist a lot of this stuff that's coming at you. You got to resist it. Some of the stuff that's coming at you, you got to basically reinforce it so that you're going to be in the mix. This train is pulling out of the station. And if we're not careful, my sisters and brothers, we may get on the caboose, the end of it, or we may not. But at some point or another, this train is pulling out. The metaphor is that the train is pulling out, and for the most part, the Detroiters are not on it. Detroit is on the train, but the Detroiters are not. And somehow, some kind of way, I'm just saying to you is, and we can deny this stuff, these reports that's coming out, these studies that's coming out, and they're very credible studies that's been done. And even a study by the Brookings Institute, which is basically a very credible institution. The share of poor residents living in extremely poor neighborhoods define those as with poverty rate at least 40%. And again, my sisters and brothers, we're still number 5. And better than obviously better than the number 1 in terms of the rankings of being the poorest. But the point is that if the city is doing so well, then why aren't we doing well with the city? And that's the question. And if we're not, why not? And if we have the why not, then why don't we basically address the why not? And these are the things I'm really trying to get to and get some response from you, and because I feel like we have a lot of conversations about stuff that basically we can't do nothing about, but stuff like this we can do something about, and this is where we should have the have the discussion on. There's somehow, some kind of way, it's got to be a concerted effort to deal with the poverty that's going on in the city, and how do we basically deal with it, and how do we address it? How can we address illiteracy, whether it's reading or whether it's financial, whatever it is? How do we address the skills that basically where people who are in their 50s and late 40s and early 50s and maybe even in the early 60s really are not going back to elementary school, but they still need to have a job. They have value. They're human. They need to eat, need to provide for themselves and for their families. And so you've got to retool them. You've got to basically try to do something to put them in a position where they can at least make a life for them, make a life for themselves, make a living for themselves. And so I'm just saying to you landscaping, it's taken over by other people, not us. The building that I live in, every time we turn around, where there's a painting where you got to paint the apartments, it's not us. You mean tell me we can't paint? We can't train people to paint paint houses and paint rooms and decorate and that kind of stuff? We can't do landscaping? You mean tell me that we are, whether it's landscaping in the summertime or in the wintertime? You mean tell me we cannot put billboard up? There's so many things that we can do. It doesn't require a degree to do it. But those of us who basically that are in their teens and in their 20s and in their 30s must understand that there's no excuse. You got to have a skill. You got to have a skill. You got to have something that basically that makes you passionate enough that you want to go to work every morning, that you want to go to work every single day. And when you have that passion and that drive, that's it. That's just it. And all I'm saying to you is whether it's a teacher's job, or it's a doctor's job, or it's a preacher's job, or whether it's a job of basically going to paint a house, or to paint a room, or to paint fire plugs in the city of Detroit, whatever it is. And these are the things I'm just saying to you. Somehow, some kind of way, we have to make sure that we address this whole thing about the fact is, and what they're saying here, according to this report that I'm reading here, and that is that it's becoming what you call haves or have not. And for the most part, you got to decide whether you're going to be which one you're going to be. And really, be honest with you, it's just the have and have nots. It's really not Detroit only. This is the whole country, the way it's going. And you got to decide which one, and our young people, they got to decide which one you want to be. Do you want to be one with have that got to have, or do you go to ones that have not? And that's basically where it's going. Caller, thank you for your patience. How are you this morning?
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
All right. Couple of things. Reverend, I attended a meeting, a partners meeting, and just a few days ago, and learned some new information. One glaring piece of news, at least it was news to me, you may already know about it. And the Randolph School, a vocational school up on 6 Mile,
and
was
Hubbard.
given a little bit more than $250,000 to make a few repairs in the building and to open up a few additional classrooms for students to learn vocational skills.
Right.
So this is DTE made this investment, and these young children are now learning drywalling, they're learning electrical wiring, they're learning whatever those vocational skills are at that particular site. And, Reverend, there was an ongoing complaint being made throughout the meeting that I attended, where DTE is saying they are unable to find the right kind of skilled workforce able to come in and replace the retiring members of DTE, that over the next 5 to 8 years will need some 5,000 to 6,000 new hires. So there was quite a bit of what I guess you call it pushback, because a lot of us had never been notified that this was a problem. There are classes that are going on at WC3 to prepare young people for these constructions, for these vocational jobs. So I know that is the mindset that's going on. The second point I would raise, Reverend, is what you said. This is not just a phenomenon that's being noticed in Detroit. Across the nation, poverty is going up.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is the overwhelming majority of those numbers are because large groups of people that used to be desired for unskilled labor, they're not needed anymore.
Right.
So all these factories are closing, all these warehouses are closing, and minimum kinds of education and supervision that used to be needed, if you don't need all of that anymore, then why should you provide education? Why should you allow people to have water? Why should you do all of those things if you don't need folks? Education is absolutely critical at this time. And a lot of it is because the regular communities, like the one that I represent, they're losing hope. Don't believe that their lives can change because so many moments in the lives of poor people are just filled with despair. And then I'll end, Reverend, with this last thing, and I think it's a message about what is to come. The governor of Louisiana made a public speech about a week and a half ago saying that elderly and disabled people who depend on Medicaid to keep them in nursing homes may have to come up with a different plan effective July 1st, Reverend, because the monies in Medicaid will run out.
Right.
And they will no longer be able to stay in convalescent centers and nursing homes.
Right.
And those elderly and disabled people that are still living at home with caretakers, the money will not be there to keep them anymore.
Yeah.
And I say to you, Reverend, what kind of people are we that we would allow that kind of a sentiment? Elderly and disabled no longer cared for. What kind of people are we that the threat of 17,000 water shutoffs being reduced by the threat of people having their water shut off will scare people into making arrangements that they can't pay for, and we allow that? What kind of people are we that, Reverend, you see them, there are homeless people on every corner with signs that say we'll work for food, and we have all of this housing. So you're right. It is a question of a lack of leadership. We keep waiting for elected officials. Part of the reason we're being tortured. Elected officials are okay with torturing low-income people, but we don't have the kind of ground-up leadership that we need to be able to say, listen, we're going to teach, we're going to educate, we're going to house, we're going to feed, and these are the rules that we're going to abide by if we live in the city of Detroit. So, Reverend, welcome to my world.
Thank you so much. And thank you very much. Caller, you in touch. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you?
Just fine. Thank you for coming. Calling.
That's good. Well, you know, I had a conversation about what you're talking about, the building up of downtown, and what about the rest of us?
Right.
And the young lady I conversed with, she was a voter of the current mayor. And she complained because over in her neighborhood, a contractor from Hazel Park was doing a shoddy job of mowing the grass or whatever. And when she went to complain to him, he literally, cussed her out. Now here he is, a white contractor from another city, taking our tax dollars, making money, and disrespecting us.
Yeah.
This is why I and many others did not advocate this current mayor. We see who's getting the contract. We see who's getting the contract. It's plain as the nose on our faces. Anybody can dig a hole. We have a lot of black contractors here in the city of Detroit. But no, he gives the contracts to people that don't live here. So how can anybody complain who voted for this current mayor, complain about the poor people in Detroit when the opportunities for the citizens to work and make money from our own tax dollars are given to outsiders? It's just an anomaly. It's a contradiction. So this is why we said vote for Benny Napoleon. This is why we said vote for Coleman Young Jr., because it stands to reason they was trying to give the job to their people, for lack of a better word. So I don't understand this complaining when people vote the very person who's working against them in that vein they voted for him. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the call. Call you in touch Harry this morning. Yes.
Good morning, Reverend.
Yes, Harry.
Yes, I voted for the mayor, and I most certainly did. You had African American politicians here who have never did anything for the citizens of Detroit. I cleaned the city up. I cleaned my block up. We used to call and ask the pharaohs down there on Woodward to come and get these children from tearing up and destroying this beautiful property in Detroit. We who voted for the mayor did not vote for him because he was white. They are all, and we find out that all politicians are controlled by corporations, bankers, lobbyists, special interests, and the military industrial complex. They all are. All of you all of these Negro politicians have sold the citizens of Detroit. You did not treat the citizens of Detroit right. You never did. And don't talk about, because I'm a Muslim. I followed Malcolm X. I voted for the mayor because he came around, he talked and pretended that he was going to do a lot for us. But one thing we realized is that corporations control them all. And let me tell you this, we are working 3 and 4 jobs here. It is income inequality. We can't make enough money that my daddy used to take care of us. My mother didn't have to work. Back in the 50s, she didn't have to work. He had one job. He took care of us. We took vacation once a year. And today, people can't do that on one. You can't live off of one salary. And we didn't vote for the mayor because he was white. We were looking for stuff to be done in this city. And you Negroes did nothing. And you know what? The people of Detroit lost respect for you. Because when we used to call down there, you did nothing. You didn't answer the telephone. When you did answer the phone, you talked disrespectful, condescending, and low down about the citizens of this city. And when you lose the citizens, that's why they go elsewhere to vote. Not because the mayor is white. That's the biggest lie that you Negroes have ever told. You were disrespectful. Benny Napoleon is now with the mayor. Reverend Anthony is with the mayor. What are you talking about the citizens of this city? And we live here. I pay taxes here. I've been in this one house 44 years. And I didn't vote for no mayor because he was white. That is too easy for you to say such nasty, condescending, disrespectful stuff about people who stay here. We are the people who stay. We want a good city, regardless of color.
Good, thank you.
And let me tell you this, it's income inequality. There are 18,600,000 vacant homes in the United States. Did you know that,
yes.
Pastor?
Yeah.
We have 600,000 vacant homes in the United States. And you can say, that's not how 6 homes for every homeless person. We have over 200,000 homeless people here. And with they disrespectful, nasty, condescending remarks about African people. We want a good city. We want a progressive city. And we want our children to be highly educated. And we find out that pastors and people go behind in the back room and form groups to deceive the people. This is wrong. You all, in most instances, all of them are bought and paid off.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for the.
Thank you for letting me do it.
No, that's okay. So thank you for the call. It's about 14 minutes to the hour, and again, if you're just joining in, we're basically talking about an article that appeared a few weeks ago, and I'm just basically bringing it to the forefront here in this particular program, and talking about the fact Detroit poverty gets worse in spite of Detroit's comeback. We're the comeback city, but the citizens of Detroit are not coming back economically, and we're still basically getting worse as far as poverty is concerned. And that's what we're really talking about, and you're certainly welcome to join this conversation. The telephone number is right there on your television screen. If you listening by way of internet, listening by way of internet, 868-0342 is the number, 868-0351, 868-4336 are the numbers that you can actually call. And the thing about it is, I guess, and the last two calls, basically, and probably that's where we are. We're divided in this community in terms of, not so much in terms of race, but in terms of what's going on. And that we basically may be divided in who's in position. But I think we have come and unified on the condition. Let me just say this again: we may not be, basically be in sync with the positions, the politicians and so forth, but we are certainly unified on the condition. And what can we? And that's what we need to talk on, and that's what we need to really, from my point of view, is that we need to really try to see what we can do to come up with something that we can challenge the politicians to change the conditions that's going on in our community, and so that to me is really a good example that we are both callers represent both camps, but the both of you talked about the fact is that we still got to deal with the condition of what's happening here in the city of Detroit. And I whenever I go to some of these meetings and I hear and I ask these questions, what can be done about the neighborhood? And it seems to be, it doesn't seem to be where it's going to come from the top down. It's going to have to happen from the bottom up. I mean, for example, Midtown is run by this lady that basically has done. She's sort of like the person responsible for all the stuff that's going on in Midtown. But her group and her organization basically worked with banks and so forth, and gets access to the various grants, and you see what happens. Corktown, the same thing, and so it wasn't so much things that was done by the mayor or by city council. It was done by the people that's in the community. And I guess I'm just saying to you is that we ought to be able to do and use the same formula and that they use, that we can use it in our community. And dare banks or anybody else not to give us resources to help our community. And that's the thing that I think that we got to really deal with here. And again, like I said before, I just feel like that we need to do it has to be a concerted effort of where we sit around and what can we do to really deal with what's going on in the city of Detroit. Not to complain, and obviously there's enough complaining to go around for everybody. It's not so much of that. And I'm not quite sure if we really want to say that people have been brought off like preachers and other people, community leaders. I'm not quite sure of that. I go to some of these meetings. I don't go to all of them, but I go to some of them, and I don't feel that that's what's going on. Of course, many people say that I've been brought off and so forth. But again, I can't deal with that kind of criticism because I know exactly who I am and what I'm trying to do. But in seeing all of that, I just feel like that somehow, some kind of way, that we need to try to make sure that we deal with this. If Dan Gilbert gets $680 million, that's a lot of money, my sisters and brothers. And I'm not mad. I'm not mad at nobody. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about now. So don't get it twisted. I'm not mad at nobody. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about. But that's a lot of money that the state has given him, that kind of money for his projects, his building projects. And was anything in there for training for us? So if I'm going to need, if I'm going to do a hotel, so I have some hotel management training ready to go into that hotel. If I'm going to have a construction, should I start getting people ready for that construction? If I'm going to have whatever it is that it takes to build a building, I don't know. But I just know, my sister, brother, if the state is investing that kind of money in a project in downtown Detroit for one person, it would seem like to me that the other 699,000 people ought to at least have something going for them, and especially who's gonna run the place? Who's gonna run the place? You know, what's going to happen to the old jail? You know, so I mean, all of those things, the old Hudson, all this stuff that they're doing, but somehow, why don't we get ready for it? Why don't we get ready for it? There's something coming on the east side that basically called Flex Gate, and they're basically going to make parts for Ford Motor Company. They got to build the factory first, and when they build the factory, they're going to train. They're going to have they're going to basically develop and make parts for Ford Motor Company. So it's going to take them 2 years to get the building up and the equipment in there. So why can't we get the people trained for in 2 years? My sisters and brothers, I mean, am I making any sense to you guys? Am I making any sense at all? I mean, if Detroit is moving, then now Detroiters are moving with Detroit, and you're training them. And you're training them. If I know I'm going to when I get out of this training program, I'm going to get a job, that's an incentive for me to go there and try to accomplish it and be good at what I'm going to do. Call it. Thank you for your patience. How are you this morning?
Good morning.
Yes.
Here to Midland.
Yes, you're on the air.
I was just going to sit and listen this morning, but the woman who said she was busy, it's part of the discussion. I'm not just really getting on her. I'm just discussing what we're discussing. But I was really offended by her saying black politicians and community people disrespected this city and didn't do the best that they could do for the communities and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's very, very offensive. And then she turns around and says her white mayor, she insinuated at least, has changed that dynamic and everything is working for her. I guess that's what she was getting to. And that kind of talk and narrative fits right well in with Trump and all these other people who think that black people have been a weight on this system and they want to make America great again. Mm-hmm. Black people, community leaders, politicians, all kind of people been fighting this good fight for decades and decades and decades against a brutal and very strong military corporate regime. You know what I'm saying? They've been fighting and fighting and fighting. And I'm surprised that we're still here and that we have any amount of resources to deal with. So I want to just call and applaud you and other people who work tirelessly to uplift our people. I do want to say to you, Reverend, that you said you're not mad at Dan Gilbert for getting almost $1 billion of our tax money, but I don't know how you could not be mad. You know, that money could have gone into reopening or building high-tech youth centers that not just involve youngsters in physical activities, but introduce them to the new technologies and innovations out there. Yeah. You know, you're talking about all these projects coming up. Those youth centers can incorporate that kind of training and exposure to this new world that's coming up and the opportunities to what they need to engage in to live for themselves. Then align those youth centers with these educational centers.
Yeah, but I got you.
Granted,
clearly,
these educational schools and stuff, they're antiquated. And they need to come up to what this world is about and getting into. But I love my black people. There's a lot of problems we got going on, and I'm just
Thank you so much for the call, though. Appreciate
I'm surprised that it's not worse, but we from a quality DNA, and we're still here.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the call. Appreciate it very much. It's 2 minutes to the hour. Now, understand those what you call tax incentive comes from brownfield. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and try to act like I'm a mathematician or an economist. I'm not. But obviously, it's just not the. In other words, there is technical language that comes with that, and it's not just the idea of just giving him. It has something to do with. I'm not sure if we got that much landfill in the city of Detroit, but if it is, that's where it comes from. And obviously, you got to use that money for something. It's designated for building and that kind of thing, rather than what the program that you're talking about. The point is, I'm just saying to you is that, and I think we both agree with this, and that is that we got to find a way not only to build the buildings, but to build the people to run the buildings, and they ought to be us. And that's what I'm saying. And if we talk about poverty, then that's what we need to deal with here. And the reason why I'm poor is because I don't have any money. And the reason I don't have any money is because I don't have a job. And the reason I don't have a job in many cases is because I don't have a skill. So I'm just saying to you is, and then the other thing, my sister, but understand, but down through the years, black parents are sending to school, and black teachers are in the classroom, black principals in the buildings, and black board members and black superintendents. I mean, down through the years. And so at some point or another, we got to understand that that 10 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, I mean, look what teachers did with us, with much less. And I'm just saying it's enough to go around to all in terms of blame. I guess it's got to take a place 9 o'clock, and I'll take a break. So hang in there. I just want to just give a sort of like a theme of what we're talking about here when it comes down to talking about this whole country devaluing of people. But let's take a break and go right into that. I'll be right back with you. So don't go anywhere. Please don't go anywhere.
Prayer for you, and I will always care for you. Hello, Detroit.